Hello, everyone. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live. My name is Davina MacPhail. I'm the Investment Program Director at Spring Activator. And I'm hosting Marlon Thompson today, the founder of Future Capital, to talk about investment and investing with purpose. So before we start, we acknowledge that we are headquartered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And as a global team, we'd like to extend this acknowledgement to all those who have historically stewarded and nurtured the lands we live, work, and play on today. So, for those of you who are joining us from the Future Capital Network, I just wanted to share a little bit more about what Spring does. And so, over the past 10 years, Spring Activator has been a leader in developing the impact entrepreneur ecosystem in Canada. So Spring's work has focused on designing, delivering, and advising on incubation, acceleration, and investment readiness programs for more than 1,500 impact-driven, growth-oriented entrepreneurs. So in addition to that, the organization has been committed to democratizing and diversifying the impact investing landscape and designing inclusive and tailored programs for traditionally underfunded founders, as well as first-time, non-accredited, and underrepresented investors. So, why did we want to have this conversation? We see increasingly overlaps between impact investing and diversity, equity, and inclusion spaces. And so, since Spring is actively working to promote early stage and angel impact investing, and Future Capital is developing capacity for more diversity in early stage investing, we wanted really to share some insights with our audience, with you guys today, as experts and advocates. So, why did we bring in Marlon into the conversation? Hello, welcome, Marlon.
Hi.
Future Capital is a leader in the investing ecosystem in developing pathways for underrepresented investors. We really wanted to get your unique perspective on what it means to invest with purpose. And so with that, I will let you introduce yourself the way you like to be introduced.
Thank you, Davina. It's good to see you, and
Great to
I've
see
got
you.
some background noise right on time, right as I begin to speak. But yeah, happy to be here, and excited for this conversation about my favorite topic, values investing and investing with purpose.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little bit about me for folks who, for anyone who I haven't met. My name is Marlon. I'm the founder and CEO of Future Capital. I'm first generation Canadian, so was born and raised over in Ontario and moved out to Vancouver just over 10 years ago to take my first job at a startup. So my entire experience on the West Coast has been in the world of venture. I spent a handful of years working in operational roles within early stage companies, anywhere from pre-seed to Series A. So I got a lot of exposure to kind of what makes a startup tick on the inside, and companies that were at various stages of growth and development. And beyond that, I became really, really interested in the ecosystem side of venture building. So I joined an accelerator as an accelerator manager, eventually took over the role of running all of the programs at that accelerator, and got really, really interested. And I felt like I was getting smacked in the face with the news that investors make a lot of the decisions around which companies get to succeed, because building a venture is, capital intensive. There's no two ways around it. It's really impossible to scale without capital, and 99% of companies need to go and get outside capital at some point or another. Revenue isn't enough. Became really interested in the financing side of venture building, joined a VC, and long story short, I left to build Future Capital. So what we're doing at Future Capital today is building a new, more diverse network of early stage investors, and we really kind of focus our energy around financial literacy and community building. So that's me and Future Capital in a nutshell.
Great. No, thanks. And so excited for this conversation. So let's dive right in. I'll be curious to know, how investing works at Future Capital, and talking about investors and how they're so important in all of this. Kind of, yeah. I would
Yeah.
love to hear a bit more about how you're doing that.
Yeah, I think I always start this answer by saying we are not a fund. We have the word capital in our name, and so sometimes that indicates or signals to people that we may or may not have a fund lurking in the background. We do
Mm,
not. We really put community at the center of all of our investing. So I'll start with myself. I'm an angel investor. I predominantly focus on CPG and consumer tech companies
mm,
at the pre-seed or seed level. But we work with investors that are at kind of many different stages of their journey. Some are new, some are emerging, some are more established. But what connects our community is really values, interest in, providing funding to underrepresented investors, providing funding to companies that are building products that are better for you, the consumer, for the planet. And I think that's actually the common thread between a lot of our investments. But the way we work with the community is we share our opportunities with them, and every once in a while we'll co-invest and use
mm.
pooled investment vehicles to do that. So we take a fairly open-ended approach, and we are in no way working towards a more structured kind of fund model. I think this community-driven investing approach really works for us today.
Yeah, and I'm sure, also building on that. I mean, when you're investing as a community, I don't know what you can share a bit also about, what happens in these communities when we invest together.
Yeah.
It's, angel investing. Sometimes it's seen something that people do on their own, but this is like really like bringing, like embarking the community together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, angel investing is done like in the dark, to be honest. Like most of it happens behind the scenes. A lot
Mm,
of angel investors or early stage investors or VCs that also angel invest don't talk too much about how they do it or what they do or where they're investing. They just do it. And so we're trying to open up the black box around early stage
mm,
investing. And with our community, we try to be really, really transparent and open around our process, how we run diligence. We try to give them access to the best companies that we can find, and try to work with them to enable them to move into the industry at their own pace. So today that we do a lot of the leadership on deals. Like we take the lead on finding,
mm,
sourcing, vetting, and sharing opportunities. But in the future, I think there's a lot of potential for us to elevate members of our community to take the lead and
mm.
really step into that kind of leadership role within the investing process. But to date, we're still really kind of working at the community level and sharing what we can.
Great. No, thanks. Another question was, around investment thesis. Many investors use a thesis as a guide or a roadmap to,
Yeah.
kind of direct their investments. And I don't know if you could share a little bit more about, how your thesis has helped you to invest, and especially to invest with purpose.
Yeah, I mean, the thesis is such an important tool for angel investors. It functions a bit differently for venture capital firms, but there's still a version of that for institutional investors as well. But I think the investment thesis is a really good way to um, you know wrap your mind around what it is that's important to you as an
Mm,
investor. It's not like a thesis in your PhD that you have to defend for 9 years, and if you learn that it's the wrong thesis, you're screwed. Like this is
mm,
something that I believe can be iterative and should be flexible and should grow as you grow, and should change as you become more educated. And for me, my first investment, I had like a super shaky thesis. It was super shaky. I don't even think I would repeat it. But today, where I'm at is I invest up to $15,000 to $20,000 into pre-seed and seed companies in North America, led by underrepresented founders, with a preference for companies in the consumer packaged goods or consumer tech spaces. I love brands. I love consumers. I understand consumer patterns, and I've built up a strong portfolio of really high velocity CPG companies, and so that it has just like enabled me to kind of double down and continue to invest in those areas as that expertise and domain expertise and those patterns become more clear to me over time.
And I love that, and I love the fact that impact, an investment thesis is something that's living, breathing. That every investor kind of initially kind of defines, then gets to test, then to fine tune and to orient. So I totally agree with that, and I think we see a lot of that also in our spring programs, and investors coming in with also sometimes you think you have a thesis, and then you start investing, and then that's when things kind of adjust, and also the people that you meet, right? Because investing is also around, especially when you're investing in early stage, it's around investing in people, and like all these connections that you make also support that piece. So yeah,
Totally.
thanks.
Yeah, you get validation along the way, and sometimes the market changes, right? Like sometimes you're investing into a space or a category that flips, and it would no longer make sense to spend time in that space, or maybe no longer makes sense to spend time in that space for you. So that fluidity and iterative approach to building and articulating a thesis, I think, is really important.
So I don't know if for people here listening to us, kind of thinking of, say, oh yeah, so what is my thesis? And how do I start? I mean, I don't know if you could maybe share, how you went about it. I mean, yes, you touched on it, but how you developed it, and like how did that happen for you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I think for me, and I think for a lot of folks, like there were parts of my thesis that were just kind of inevitable. So frankly, I just don't see a world in which diversity wasn't part of my thesis. Like it's something I've been working on for the past decade in many different capacities, like in work, outside of work. I see just endless opportunity, unfortunately, to improve the day-to-day lives of underrepresented people of color, LGBTQ plus people, women, just live at such disadvantages in so many different ways. So I think for me, that part of the thesis was baked in. Like that was probably never not gonna be a part of my thesis. And I think where I definitely had a lot more latitude at the beginning was around the sector and product type that I would be investing in. And I landed in consumer tech because I work in consumer tech. In a lot of ways, Future Capital is a consumer tech product and or it's a consumer tech company. And I think the CPG, frankly, the CPG angle was because of my network. And I think this is a really good reason to start investing into a certain category, because you have a really powerful network that can get you access to really fantastic deals, and you can learn by osmosis as you're going through the process of investing. So for me, I was fortunate enough to work with a number of the early investors in Smart Suites, which I don't know if anyone doesn't know what Smart Suites are, but at this stage, I actually kind of think everybody does. But if you don't, they're a healthy candy company that had just like a really crazy trajectory. They exited in 2020 for a really significant transaction, and I just got the good fortune of being associated and working with a lot of the folks that had something to do with that company and that success story. And so it was a really easy choice for me to start investing into CPG brands, because I knew that I was going to learn a ton. And I also knew that I was going to de-risk my investments, because the folks I was investing alongside had that subject matter expertise, that domain expertise. So that's kind of how I came to my thesis. But frankly, like that very first check that I wrote was, I mean, I don't think there was much of a thesis around it. It was kind of like, I'm going to invest in the best opportunity that I can get my hands on and learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also a bit of a two-way street, right? Like you find like the domains that you know about, that you're also you have the network, you have, that means that you have access to those opportunities to invest. But and it's also what you can contribute, right? When you're an investor, it's not just about like kind of learning, I mean, being on one side, but you also get to contribute to these entrepreneurial journeys, right? Especially since you're investing
100%.
in very early stage founders who need all the network, the connections, and the support that are possible. I don't know if you can also speak to that, and kind of that two-way street.
Totally. I mean, I'm going to be really transparent. When my first deal, I don't know how much value I added beyond just a few intros, which were valuable. Like I was able to connect that founder to a number of individuals and one institution that did invest. I credit Katie, the founder, Katie Wilson from Belly Welly, for those investments. I don't credit myself, but I was able to add value through those introductions. But to be completely honest with you, I didn't add much value after that because I didn't have much to add. Like, and that's just me being honest, And I think what I learned through that deal was the value of like just maintaining a good relationship, healthy, balanced, equal relationship with the founder. I don't think investors should hold any power over founders. In fact, the founders are the stewards of your capital. You better let them do everything that they want to do, right? Like, you better trust them, and that's why you should be investing. And so for me, the relationship really was, supportive in terms of checking in, staying informed. If there's an intro or a door I can open, I would. But there wasn't a whole lot of value add in that first deal. What I'll say is, after building my portfolio out, and today when I meet founders, it's a different story, because I've had years of working with multiple different founders in different categories at different stages, and I've seen the trajectory. I've seen like the Katies of the world go from making a product in her kitchen to raising a seed round. And so I can actually add value because I can see around some of those corners for founders, and I can add some insight. So I think that value add it's important to be realistic about where you're at with it. And especially like at the pre-seed level, founders will usually take your money. So if you don't add value but you can invest, then that's good enough. And I think being transparent about that is good, and saying, hey, I want to learn with this one. This is my first deal, and I'm gonna just get on the ride to learn.
Yeah, and also, I mean, sometimes just also having investors who trust them is a huge value add, for founders. And so, it's not the actual, there's not only actions that you do, it's like also that relationship builder, which I love. No, but so kind of digging a bit more in your, in your thesis, and as we're talking about, diversity and bringing more of it into our ecosystem and into the investment ecosystem. What role really do you see diversity play in making capital more accessible?
Oh, I mean, it's a huge topic. It's a huge topic. I think the context for starting Future Capital is, I started Future Capital in August of 2020, and that was like no coincidence, that timing. So at the time I was working for an established venture capital firm. I was, moving my way forward in my career in venture capital. And honestly, the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor really, I mean, I can't even talk about it today. It really struck a chord, and that's an understatement. It didn't just strike a chord. It really changed my perspective. And that was the motivation for building this business. I thought, what do I actually know? What can I do? And diversity, equity, and inclusion at the shareholder level, I believe, has like massive potential for individuals. I'm not gonna lie, it's a long and arduous educational journey to get folks to understand that. To be honest, it's a foreign space. I think of like some family members who, if I tried to get them to do an angel investment, they would be like, "Are you joking? What are you talking about? What is that?" There's so much distance between certain communities and certain cultures and this asset class and this language that we speak in this world, which I know Davina, it's a language working in
Yeah.
this VC ecosystem. But I think, moving the needle even 1% is enough, honestly, for us. So that's really where it comes from. I think, I could go on forever. I think there's so many reasons to invest in, diversifying leadership at every level. For us, we really decided to focus on the investor class because we just saw it as like overlooked category. Like there's a lot of discussion, a lot of measurement around founders who were funded and founders who weren't funded, and there's like even still new like really insane data coming out about who gets funded. But I think for us, we saw a really huge opportunity to go into the market with an offering that really focused on creating wealth for underrepresented communities through financial literacy and accessibility.
Yeah, and then as you were saying also at the start of the conversation, like the investors hold a lot of power, and kind of also like diversifying that will trickles down such a positive way. No, great, thanks for that, and keen to continue that conversation on that topic. As you say, it's a huge topic. But maybe just one last question before Leo, as we have limited time here. But how do you see impact investing? So what is at the core of what Spring does, and diversity, equity, and inclusion intersecting. How can we inspire more traditional investors to intentionally integrate DI lens and in their investment decision? So long question. Feel free to take a few pieces.
No worries. Yeah, no, listen, you and I are both in British Columbia, I believe, and we know about the devastation in the interior right now. And so, I don't know what kind of wake-up call it's going to take for folks to take that seriously. So there's just, I don't even feel like I should have to underline like how important, how like systemically important it will affect everything if we don't, shift our focus towards, ESG goals. And but I think bridging the gap between D&I for me is DE&I and impact isn't that complicated when you just think of the fact that racism is a public health issue for a lot of communities. It really is, and I think we really saw that in 2020, and with the Black community, we are seeing it now with the trans community. We are seeing it with women in the US, there's like these social injustices are public health issues, and there's just no way around that. So I think there's impact in supporting and enabling and empowering underrepresented groups at any level. Honestly, I think there's impact in every founder who comes from an underrepresented community or comes from a lower economic status. There's impact in that creating that opportunity for upward mobility and generational wealth is a massive shift in a culture that's been entrenched over hundreds of years, right? So I think there is an overlap there, and I think actually the motivations to invest into purpose-driven companies and the motivations to invest into underrepresented founders come from a very similar place. So I think there's some intrinsic connection there that you can't really disappear. It just exists.
Yeah, and I think both at the core of this is also people's individual calling, right, on all of these causes, like reactions also, as you mentioned, the forest fires, witnessing something that's truly unjust, it and drives you to act, right. I think finding the right way. I think Spring and Future Capital have been kind of also building our activity, our businesses around that. How to empower everyone to really act on what they see and what they want to change. So I think that's how I would also see them intersecting. Yeah.
Totally, and I mean that's why I don't want to jump the gun, but I'm excited to participate and work on some of the impact investor challenges with Spring as a guest speaker, because I think for us, like, we've really, as a founder and as like a product leader, we've really tried to stay focused on that one demographic just so we can do a really good job. But I think that collaboration across breaking down those silos, collaboration across initiatives, across organizations, is actually just going to accelerate it and deepen the work that we're already doing.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. But so with that, I really wanted to thank you for this great conversation. We are, as you just mentioned, really looking forward to having you in more of these discussions as you join as a guest speaker our upcoming investor challenges. So Spring organizes Impact Investor Challenges really to invite anyone who wants to invest, but really also develop their own investment thesis, as we just discussed before. Get an experience in kind of what angel investment is about, investment for impact, and also investment to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. If I can just share our upcoming programs as we wrap up here, we have a women-led Impact Investor Challenge starting on September 27th. And so this program will be focused specifically on supporting women founders and increasing the number of women founders receiving capital, which is, as just mentioned, Marlon, if you look at the stats, there's a long way to go. So that's the Women-Led Impact Investor Challenge starting on September 27th. We also have our Clean Tech Atlantic program. So anyone keen to invest on climate, on clean techs, and clean techs, we have a program in Atlantic Canada, but open to anyone based anywhere in Canada who is keen to kind of discover a bit that space where there's a lot of innovation, a lot of activity in the clean tech space. So that program starts on October 3rd. So both of these programs are 12 weeks program finishing in December. And we also have a BC, so British Columbia Health program starting on October 5th. This is an 8 weeks program. So starting October 5th, ending at the end of November. All these are really opportunities for new investors, so accredited or non-accredited, to really learn more about investment, do it with the community. I just mentioned also Bar Marlon and talking to the strength of that. So do join us. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want more information. There's some links that will be shared. And if you're curious about what do these programs actually look like, tomorrow we have an info session for the BC Health program. And so my colleague Ashma Chopra and Mike Reed from DLA Piper will be kind of giving you a first glimpse and an intro to all the tools, the legal tools that are used for investment. There's a lot, as mentioned also by Marlon, there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of language around this. So join us for this info session tomorrow and learn more about our the different investment tools, and then sign up and join us if that's you like what you hear. So that's it for us. It was great to see you, Marlon, to have that conversation. Really enjoyed it, and looking forward to connecting with all of you. Thank you for joining us and take that time. Any final words, Marlon?